Hi everyone, here's our training video on phase 2, which is distance and persistence. So if you're watching this, just make sure that your child has mastered phase 1. That's the one where the communication book is going to be within arm's reach of your child, and you are going to be within arm's reach of your child. So if they've mastered that phase, they should be independently picking that picture up, reaching towards you, and handing it to you to make a request. So if they're consistently doing that every time, or at least in about 90% of the time, we're going to move on to phase 2. So this phase, like I said, is called distance and persistence. What we do here is we teach children to persist, which means just to stick with communication, even when they encounter obstacles. So obstacles might be having to travel to the book, having to go around a table, having to get your attention, but they're having to do a little bit more work to make that request, and it teaches them to stick with it and that they can still make that request using PECS. So children learn to travel to their communication book and to their partners. So your communication partner is whoever your child is asking for things. So it might be you, it could be a sibling. If they go to daycare, it could be the daycare staff, anyone that they are interacting with and making a request from. One important thing to talk about is that although we're doing phase 2 right now, we're going to revisit it after each phase. So when we keep going, we're going to work on a different skill in a different phase, but at the end of it, we're going to build in them traveling to their book again. It's really important that they're able to travel to their book because this is what makes them independent communicators. So they want something and they go and they know how to get it and how to ask for it. And then as much as you can, I know it's a little tricky during COVID, but make sure your child communicates for different items and with as many people as possible. So like I said before, if you have other children in your house, you could have them request from a sibling or a cousin or whoever it is, as many adults as possible, just really making sure they know that it's not just, oh, I use this to ask mom for things, or I use this to ask dad for things. It's I use this to ask anybody I want for anything I want. So in order to teach this, we're going to start with your child traveling to the communication partner. So that's going to be you or whoever they're requesting from. You're going to start just like you do within phase 1. So you're going to sit really close to them within arm's reach and just do the normal exchange that they're used to. If they independently hand you that picture, which they should the first time because they've mastered that, you are going to scoot yourself back a little bit further after you give them the item. So they hand you the picture card, you might say Slinky or whatever it is, give it to them, and then take a few steps back. We want to do this in little increments of distances. So we don't want to just walk across the room now. We just want to scooch back a little bit. So maybe take 2 or 3 steps back, or scoot yourself a tiny bit back. And we're just going to continue doing this and continue moving further and further from the communication book and your child to really show them that they can travel to you. So if they hand you the picture independently, you are going to, again, give them the item, label it, put the picture back on the book, and then move a little bit further away. If they don't independently give you the picture symbol, so that means if you have to show them your open hand for them to get it, if you have to gesture, or if you have to prompt them, you are going to stay at that distance for the next trial, and you're going to stay there until they do it independently. Then once they do it independently at that distance, you're going to back up again. We are, just as in phase 1, we're using physical prompts or gestures, so pointing or giving an open hand, or those physical prompts of physically moving your child to the book. So we're still not using verbal prompts. We're still not going to say, go get your book, or where's the picture, or give me the picture. We are still remaining silent while we're waiting for them to ask for it. We're also going to target traveling to their communication book. So in this setup, we're going to stay close to the child as the communication partner, but slowly scooch the book further and further away from them. It's the same thing that if they independently give you the picture symbol, you're going to scooch the book back for the next trial. If they do not, if you have to prompt them, you're going to leave the book at that distance until they can do it independently. And then again, you're going to scooch it further away. In this, we're also only using physical or gestural prompts, still no verbal prompts. And essentially, it's just the same thing. So in one part of it, you are moving yourself as the communication partner back when they have done it successfully. In this one, you're staying close to the child, but you're moving the communication book away from them when they're successful. Eventually, we do want them traveling across rooms, between rooms, really searching out that communication book and searching out you whenever they need to request something. But we're going to start little by little and just scooch back a little bit at a time. And then we also want to make sure that we work on the persistence piece. So that's them really sticking with the exchange. So this is a lot harder than it sounds. We're going to make sure that you're not giving your child any types of cues or prompts. So that means they're doing it totally independently. They're not picking up the tiniest little things from your body language. So some common prompts and cues that people often forget about is just looking at your child or looking at their PECS book. So if you're holding what they want and they walk up to you and you even just look at their PECS book, that's a cue to them if they're tuning into that, if they're looking at you. It can also be leaving your hand open for them to put the picture in. Or what I see a lot, and what I've done a lot, it's really hard to kind of train yourself to not do this, is that as your child picks up the picture symbol from their book, you reach your hand out to take it. We really want to make sure that until they put it in your hand, you're not moving your hand. Also, even just facing your child could be a cue. So you could try turning away from your child so your back is to them. Then they have to walk around you. Try looking at the floor or the ceiling so you're sure you're not looking at your child's or your child's book. Try folding your hands together in your lap, putting your hands in your pockets. You can cross your arms and really see if your child will reach and persist and really stick with that exchange and try to put it in your hand. This is while we're teaching this phase, we want to be really aware of this. Once they've mastered doing this and we know that they can, we don't have to do this every time. So if your child goes to their communication book and goes to give something to you, you don't have to cross your arms and make sure they shove it in your hands. We just want to do that for the time being to make sure that we know that they're able to do it, so that it's an important skill, so that if you're on the phone, let's say, and you're talking to somebody, but your child really wants something, they can come up and they can give you that picture even when you're not expecting it. And that's really what we want, because they're becoming independent communicators. So here is a video explaining it. And I forgot to mention this before. If you have 2 people to prompt, just like in phase 1, that's ideal. So especially when you have some more distance between you and the book, if you're on one side of the room and the communication book's on the other side and your child just walks up to you with no picture, it would be really great to have a second person that walks your child silently back to their communication book and prompts them to pick it up. But just like in phase 1, we know sometimes that's not realistic. So we want to show you how to do it if it's just you and your child, or whoever, one person and your child. We previously talked about phase 1, and that's where you're just going to show your child an object and they pick up the single picture and put it in your hand to request shark. And so once they've mastered that, they've mastered phase 1, and we're going to move on to phase 2. So in this phase, we're focusing on what we call distance and persistence. So you're going to start sitting within arm's reach of your child, just like you did before, and they're going to exchange the picture with you when they want it, and then you're going to give it to them. Once they've done that successfully, you're going to put a little bit more distance between the 2 of you. So I might scooch back a little bit. And then do the same thing. Silently hold up the item and have them exchange it. Say shark and give it to them. So it's going to be the same thing where we want them to pick up that picture, reach to you and release it. But now that reach is going to be a little bit further. Or they might have to stand up and walk to you. So she did that independently. So I'm again going to scooch back. I'm just going to turn this so you can see. I'm going to now scooch back even further because she did it independently. Now if she brings it to me again, say shark and give it to her. If your child does not do it independently, so let's say I hold it up and she either just sits there or she takes the picture but doesn't get up and give it to me, I can give her an open hand prompt. If that still doesn't work, I will need to use those physical prompts again. Say shark and give it to her. Because she didn't do that independently, I'm going to stay at this distance until she does. So this time, if she gives it to me independently, shark, she gets it, and I'm going to scooch back again because she did it independently. A lot of times it will just take that open hand prompt or a gesture pointing to the book to cue them to go to the book and give you the picture. But just remember, every time they don't do it at a certain distance, we're going to want to work on that distance again. You're not going to back up further. Another thing I want to touch on is that if she did it really well when we were this close, I'm not then going to go all the way back here and try to trick her. So we really want to do it little by little
and just work in adding that distance to the exchange. We also want to work on them being persistent. So by the end of this, we really want them kind of bugging us with that picture almost, as bad as that sounds. So I might turn my back to her. So she now has to walk around to exchange the picture. Shark. And this is where it's really important to try to fade out that open hand prompt. So you're going to want to make sure your hands, maybe put them on your legs. You can cross your arms if you want, but you don't want to be putting your hand out because that's a cue for them to exchange it with you. Just like phase one, it's ideal if we can have two people prompting, but you can also prompt your child to go to your book or to their book or to you by yourself if it's just you and your child. So let's say I was over here and my student was just reaching for me or for the shark. I can still prompt her to go to the book and give it to me. Shark. So one piece of that is creating more distance between yourself and your child. Another piece is creating distance between the book. So I might scooch it back a little bit, and now I'm still within arm's reach, but she had to reach for the book. Shark. And then she got that independently, so I'm going to scooch it back again, further away from her, and try it again. So if she gets it independently again, shark. I'm going to now again move it back. If this time she doesn't go for the book because it's a little too far, I'm going to gesture to it. You could tap it if you want for that open hand prompt. Shark. And then try it just from that distance again because she did not do it independently. Eventually, we want you traveling across the room, between rooms. Your child should really be looking for that PECS book whenever they want something, but we're just going to work on it little by little. So for phase two, just like phase one, if you have a second person that can prompt, that's ideal, and that's really what we want to aim for. If you don't have that, you can just do what we did in the other video. So in this situation, Holly is the student. I am the communication partner, and then Sonia will be our prompter. So if Holly comes over to me to get it without getting the picture, Sonia is going to silently prompt her to go to her book and exchange it. Slinky! And then Holly gets it. And that can be from any distance. So right now we're pretty close, but it's the same thing. So if Holly were coming to me right now, Sonia would turn her, encourage her to go to her book, and then have her exchange it. Slinky!